Hey y'all, Scott here. Are your games too balanced? Do you suffer from not being a dirtbag enough? Want to commit video game adultery? Well, might I recommend cheat codes? Before I use cheat codes, I look like this. And look at me now. Cheat codes, what separated the men from the scumbags! They were a way of life for a while. After playing a game for a bit, what better way to get more out of it than to enter in some sweet button inputs on a random menu to see some crazy stuff. A cheat code can be anything that's generally a secret command you enter in a game to change something up, and it seemed that almost every game had them for a while. Cheat codes were on the rise and were at their peak in the 5th and 6th generation of consoles, until absolutely plummeting into obscurity during the 7th. I assume cheat codes aren't as much of a thing these days due to video games being taken more seriously with stuff like online leaderboards and esports. Cheating is just more frowned upon now. Like, you cheat in Mario Tennis 64, you're the playground's messiah. You cheat in Mario Tennis Aces, the neighbors get alerted when you move in near them. Personally though, I didn't really use cheat codes to specifically cheat at games. I used them to just have fun. Rarely did I ever use them to get past a tough level or something. I was always into the weird and wacky cheat codes, stuff that changed physics, altered your appearance, or gave you a bunch of upgrades just to mess around for an afternoon. Now, potentially, the first cheat code ever was in Manic Miner on the ZX Spectrum in 1983. Typing 6031769 while playing allowed you to go to any cavern in the game. But let's be real here. This doesn't hold a candle to this. The Konami code, the most well-known cheat code in existence. You rattle off an up, down, down, left, right, BA start in a handful of Konami games and you come face to face with a variety of different outcomes. Of course, the most famous thing the Konami code did was give the player 30 lives in Contra, but it also did the same thing in Life Force, gave you most of the power-ups in Gradius, and unlocked all the songs in Beat Mania for the Game Boy Color. Yeah! The NES era of cheat codes primarily consisted of giving you more lives or continues. For example, Super Mario Bros. Had a secret continue code. When you lose all your lives, you hold A, B, and push start to at least continue at the beginning of the world you died in. However, some codes definitely stood out more than others. Sometimes it could be nothing more than hold A, bird fans, and other times, they could be really cool secrets. Easy example would be the Justin Bailey code in Metroid. Entering that in the password screen allowed you to play as Samus without her power suit and sporting green hair. A game with a password screen was almost guaranteed to have cheats. It's just the perfect opportunity to throw some in there. With that said, passwords were ways to allow you to resume your progress in games without save functions. So technically, just entering a password for a level you haven't gotten to yet can be considered a cheat code. Want to skip everything in Mega Man 2? Well, here you go! Throwing it out there, I was playing SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom on my Game Boy Advance on the school bus, as everybody born in 1997 did. I entered a bunch of random junk on the password screen, and bam, I unknowingly entered the code for the final boss, and I will be perfectly honest, that was probably my proudest gaming moment. Now, after the NES era, cheat codes started to get really fun. Another famous one was definitely the blood code in Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis. The SNES version was a wimp. It was censored and sweaty. The Genesis version was the real deal, and even though it technically looked worse, everybody flocked to it for one lone reason. Entering this code enabled the blood, and that's what Mortal Kombat is all about. Sonic the Hedgehog's had a great history with cheats, specifically the level select codes, allowing you to access any level you want right from the get-go on the title screen. But what's really special is the debug mode. This is hell. GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64 was famous for being a pioneer in two mediums, first-person console shooters and big head mode cheat codes. Come on, you can't beat this. This is wonderful. It was in a fair amount of games, including NBA Jam as well. The Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series had loads of codes, even offering a menu specifically for cheat codes. And nothing can ever live up to moon gravity. Look at this! But in this day and age where cheat codes have all but vanished, one company has been doing God's work and cramming them in almost every game they can. Rockstar continues to pop cheats in their games, most famously with the Grand Theft Auto series. Cheat codes allow me to play GTA in the only way I could ever imagine playing GTA, with no shit giving intact. The one I remember using cheat codes on the most was San Andreas. Now, I mainly played this one on a computer, and not just any computer, a Mac, which means but the fun thing about that version of San Andreas was that the codes had to be typed into the keyboard, meaning a lot of them were pretty easy to remember because they were just phrases. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang made the cars fly, while you could also have some super hops and have gluttony reign supreme. But one of my favorite cheats to enable in Grand Theft Auto would always be entering a code for an insane arsenal of weapons, nabbing a hefty wanted level, and just seeing how long I could survive. This is what Grand Theft Auto always ends up being whenever I play it. Now, I mainly remember nabbing cheat codes from magazines, specifically the tips and tricks code books. I never subscribed to these, but I would pick them up sometimes at the drugstore. This one always made me feel really anxious, like Bowser and ass together? My hand would always cover this portion just in case I would get diagnosed with adult supervision. Tips and tricks code book for Sonic's 15th anniversary. This was the one I thumbed through the most as a kid. It has a huge section on all previous Sonic games up until that point and has just about any and all games you could possibly want codes for covered as well. The cheat code paperback book market was at the top of its game back then. I mean, come on, name a better way to find out that you can change the bowling ball color in Wii Sports. The origins of cheat code books can be traced back to Nintendo Power, which had its own various tips and cheats you could read up on, which later brought life to strategy guides and books dedicated to cheats for all you top players out there. Anybody else find it weird that cheat code reading material was almost always marketed for supreme video game players when cheats are used to make games, you know, easier? But sometimes, cheat codes created by the game developers just aren't enough, and you want to delve into the immoral side of gaming. Cheat devices. Various products have been released over the years that alter game code to let you do all kinds of things God forbid Nintendo see. Infinite lives, crazy physics, anything's game here. There are loads of cheat devices that have appeared over the course of time, like Game Shark and Codebreaker, but these are the two I have, the original Game Genie on NES and an action replay for the GameCube. Game Genie is definitely one of the most well-known cheat devices, and one of the first of its kind as well. Being an unlicensed accessory for the NES that let you make Mario jump higher than Nintendo wanted him to, Nintendo f***ing hated it. Nintendo sued Galoob, the makers of the game Genie, citing copyright infringement. This was still the early 90s, so everybody ranging from the US government to the people who actually made video games still were having a hard time figuring out how copyright works with the medium. Since the Game Genie modified game code to do some wild stuff, Nintendo made the argument that their code is copyrighted and couldn't be tampered with. But the thing was, Galoob wasn't modifying Clu Clu Land and selling their own version of it. The Game Genie was something the consumer bought after already purchasing an NES game. It's like if you took a book and changed all the periods to commas. I mean, yeah, you're a fucking lunatic, but it's your book, do whatever you want. Nintendo tried their hardest, but in the end they lost the case and the Game Genie lived on. There was a version for the Super Nintendo and Game Boy, and the Genesis and Game Gear versions were licensed by Sega themselves, a bit of a jab at Nintendo since they despised the Game Genie. After actually playing with this thing, it can be a bit finicky, but it's an absolute blast. Look at this, I'm cheating! The Game Genie came with a code book that covered a handful of popular NES games and codes to pop into them. You just insert the game into the Game Genie and then insert the Game Genie into the console. Easy stuff. You then have to enter some codes, you can enter multiple codes or just one. Many of them are totally lame, like infinite lives, whatever, who cares? You can start Super Mario Bros. 3 with the frog suit. I've had nightmares about this before, it's great to finally face my fears. However, the device is useful if you want games to be a bit easier potentially, like the Zelda code makes you invincible, and this River City Ransom one boosts all your stats from the get-go. But I'm a simple man, give me a code that makes my jump weird and I'm all on board. This is amazing. The Action Replay is a similar line of cheat devices that actually got its start all the way back on the Commodore 64. However, unlike the Game Genie, Action Replay just kept on coming out for seemingly every platform for a while. Game Genie was a lot more wholesome, you just look through the codebook and have fun. Action Replay is way more hacky feeling. The versions for different systems vary, however many can allow you to not only mess with game code and cheat, but play import games, some homebrew stuff, and use save states. This is a version I have for the GameCube, and yeah, it does have codes for Cars the video game. I was wondering when you'd ask. For some reason, they put the disc in the same packaging you'd see for batteries, but whatever. We pop the disc in and bam, I'm overwhelmed. In some respects, Action Replay is more user-friendly than the Game Genie due to having all the codes built in. You just select what cheats you want, push start, swap out the Action Replay disc for the game you want, and there we go. If you guys needed proof I was good at Sonic Heroes, here, max rings and points 1 second into playing. Here we go, Super Mario Sunshine with cheats! Here we go, Super Mario Sunshine with cheats! This is terrifying. I'm crazy fast, I can jump and do this. Double dash, we have infinite stars, this is boring. Pac-Man World 2. Moving on. Action Replay is one of the few ways to obtain the rarer NES games in Animal Crossing and totally allows me to grab all trophies in Melee with ease. Gotta be honest, I never owned any cheat devices as a kid. I played Donkey Konga how Nintendo wanted me to, damn it! But these are pretty fun. I know a lot of other people use cheat devices on their DS for stuff like Pokemon, but me? I personally stuck to cheat codes baked into the game. There was just something magical about successfully inputting a code and experiencing the game in a way you've never seen before. They're just straight up fun, and it really bums me out that they're rarely seen in games anymore. I guess companies just thought, oh yeah, we can charge for cheats, and just threw stuff like alternate costumes on online stores. And in terms of cheats that give you infinite lives or whatever, I think developers just find it much more useful to make an accessible easy mode, which I actually kind of agree with. However, I still love cheats, and no matter what, their legacy will always live on. At least we'll always have the memories of cheat codes and the old games to still use them on, which is great, seriously. How else am I supposed to beat Wheel of Fortune on NES? Can't beat this sucker without the moon gravity cheat.